Donald Trump didn't come to Washington with a vision to unite America or uplift working families. He came with three goals. Goals so self-serving that even his most loyal supporters would cringe if they looked past the slogans. First, he wanted to give billionaires the biggest tax cut in history, and he did exactly that at the expense of everyone else. Second, he wanted to stamp his tacky brand onto the Oval Office, redecorating it in ways that looked more like a gaudy hotel lobby than the seat of democracy. And third, and most importantly to him, Trump wanted to use the presidency as the most lucrative business opportunity of his life, enriching himself in ways more corrupt than anyone could have imagined. The first two goals, mission accomplished. Billionaires walked away with mountains of money, and the Oval Office looked like a gold-plated caricature of itself. But the third? That's been a work in progress, and it's where Trump's desperation truly shows. Every scandal, every scheme, every shady deal is an attempt to squeeze just a little more cash and power out of his time in the White House. And now, ironically, the latest scandal isn't being exposed by the so-called fake news media. It isn't even a Democratic prosecutor dragging Trump's name through the mud. No, this one comes from inside the House, from none other than Melania Trump herself. Yes, the former First Lady, usually known for her cold distance and carefully calculated silence, has found herself at the center of a crypto grift gone horribly wrong. The humiliation isn't just Trump's, it's hers too. And whether she wanted to be part of it or not, her name is now attached to one of the most embarrassing financial collapses in recent memory. But before we dive into Melania's humiliation, we have to understand the bigger picture of Trump corruption, because this scandal isn't a standalone story, it's just the latest chapter in a saga of greed, insider dealing, and shameless exploitation of the presidency. Most political corruption takes years to uncover. Documents leak, whistleblowers step forward, reporters dig through records, and eventually the truth trickles out. But under Trump, corruption was so brazen it happened in plain sight, sometimes before your very eyes. That's exactly what Senator Chris Murphy was pointing out when he warned about Trump's latest family scheme, defense contracts. The Department of Defense is preparing to spend billions, literally billions, on drones over the next decade. After seeing their devastating impact in Ukraine, no one doubts that drones will dominate future warfare. And what a coincidence! Right as this massive wave of spending approaches, Donald Trump Jr. magically appears on the advisory board of a tiny Florida drone company called Unusual Machines. Here's what happened next. Practically overnight, the company's stock price doubled. Why? Not because of innovation, not because they landed a huge contract, but because everyone in Washington understands the game. If you've got a Trump on your board, the fix is probably in. Investors knew that with Don Jr. whispering in the right ears, this obscure little company might suddenly find itself swimming in federal dollars. This isn't speculation, it's a pattern. Time and time again, Trump and his family have inserted themselves into industries just as government money started flowing. They aren't inventors, they aren't experts, they aren't builders. They're parasites, attaching themselves to whatever opportunity promises the fattest payout. During the presidency, they weren't even subtle about it. Trump's hotels hiked their rates whenever foreign officials came to town, practically turning diplomacy into a Marriott points program. Ivanka secured foreign trademarks at lightning speed. Jared Kushner raised billions from Saudi Arabia for his private equity fund the moment he left office. And now, drones. As Senator Murphy warned, everyone can see this one coming from miles away. A no-name Florida company, suddenly blessed with a Trump family stamp of approval, poised to feast on taxpayer dollars through defense contracts. This isn't governance. It's grifting with military hardware. And it's happening in broad daylight. But while Don Jr. positions himself for drone dollars, his father was busy cashing in on another scheme. One that didn't just collapse financially, but dragged Melania into the mud with him. For years, Donald Trump sneered at cryptocurrencies, calling them a scam and based on thin air. But when he realized there was easy money to be made from his supporters, suddenly he was the first crypto president. The hypocrisy is almost comical. Just before his inauguration, Trump launched his own cryptocurrency, Trump Coin, a meme coin hyped up by online branding and the cult-like energy of his most devoted fans. It was a pump and dump waiting to happen. At first, the frenzy paid off. Tokens soared to nearly $75 each in January. But like every meme-driven scheme, the hype couldn't last. Within weeks, the value crashed to $40. And today, those same tokens trade for barely $8. But it wasn't just Trump. In a move that shocked even longtime observers of her carefully aloof image, Melania jumped into the crypto chaos too. She launched her own token, Melania Coin, and the results even more humiliating. Her coin has lost 98% of its value since launch, plummeting to about 20 cents a token. Imagine the embarrassment of having your name plastered across a financial disaster that your husband masterminded. Here's the kicker. The collapse of these tokens doesn't mean the Trumps walked away empty-handed. Quite the opposite. A Reuters investigation revealed that in the frenzy of the initial token sales, the creators pocketed nearly $100 million in trading fees. That's money skimmed straight from Trump's most loyal supporters, people who believed they were investing in the president's brand, only to be left holding worthless digital junk. The cruelty of it is staggering. Trump took advantage of his base not just politically, but financially, draining their savings through a coin that was doomed from the start. And then he dragged Melania into it, attaching her name to a coin that collapsed so quickly it became a running joke in crypto forums. She didn't just suffer humiliation in the press, her brand, her image, her dignity were collateral damage in Trump's latest con. But this humiliation cuts deeper than failed investments. It exposes the core of the Trump operation. They don't care about governing, they don't care about policy, they don't even care about their supporters. It's all about extracting money by any means necessary. For years, Melania Trump cultivated an image of detachment. She was the glamorous, stoic figure who rarely spoke out, who rolled her eyes at her husband's antics, who stayed in the background while projecting an air of distance. To many, she seemed almost above the circus, but the crypto grift shattered that illusion. By attaching her name to Melania Coin, she wasn't just a bystander anymore, she was a participant. And when the coin crashed, she bore the humiliation alongside Donald. Imagine being the First Lady of the United States dragged into a financial scam that lost supporters millions with your name forever tied to a worthless token. It's not just bad optics, it undermines the entire Trump family brand. For decades, Trump sold himself as a master of deals, a titan of business. Melania played her role as the elegant, silent partner, lending the operation a sheen of sophistication. But now the facade is crumbling. Trump isn't a master of deals, he's a con artist running scams. Melania isn't distant from the corruption. She's part of it, whether willingly or not. And the fallout is brutal. Loyalists who bought into the coin frenzy feel betrayed. Critics point to the collapse as proof that Trump uses anyone, including his own wife, as props in his endless pursuit of cash. And Melania herself? She's humiliated, her name reduced to a punchline in the volatile world of crypto. This humiliation is more than personal. It's symbolic. It shows that nothing and no one is off limits in Trump's grift, not even his own family. The crypto collapse wasn't a fluke. It fits into a long, unmistakable pattern that defines the Trump brand. Use the presidency to funnel money into personal ventures, drag family members along for the ride, and cover it all with a thin coat of cheap branding. Think about it. Trump University promised hardworking Americans a chance to learn real estate secrets. Instead, it left thousands of students bankrupt while Trump pocketed millions. The Trump Foundation? Supposed to be a charitable organization. In reality, it was a slush fund used to buy giant portraits of Trump himself and settle lawsuits. Ivanka's clothing lines and Chinese trademarks, handed out like candy, while her father occupied the most powerful office in the world. Jared Kushner, he walked out of the White House with a $2 billion investment from the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, despite having no proven record in global finance. Now layer in Don Jr.'s drones and Melania's meme coin disaster. This isn't a series of isolated incidents. It's a family operating like a criminal syndicate, constantly testing new ways to monetize access, influence, and loyalty. The Trumps are not in politics for ideology. They're not here to pass policy or govern effectively. They're in it for profit, plain and simple. And here's the disturbing part. Their supporters keep paying the price. Whether it's through scam universities, worthless tokens, inflated hotel bills, or shady political PACs that never fund actual campaigns, the Trump base has become the family's ATM machine. The loyalty is mined, monetized, and discarded. The same voters who believed Trump when he promised to drain the swamp have found themselves drained dry, duped into funding a lifestyle of private jets, luxury estates, and failed coins. What's worse, the corruption doesn't just stop at money. It bleeds into governance, into justice, into scandals so dark that even Trump's fiercest defenders struggle to spin them. Which brings us to one of the ugliest chapters in the Trump saga, The Epstein scandal. When Jeffrey Epstein's crimes exploded back into the spotlight, many powerful figures scrambled to distance themselves. But for Donald Trump, distance wasn't an option. The ties were too deep, the connections too glaring, and the decisions too suspicious. Let's start with the basics. In the early 2000s, Epstein was under investigation in Florida for abusing minors as young as 14. Most prosecutors would have pursued him with everything they had, but not in this case. Instead, Epstein received a sweetheart deal from federal prosecutors that gave him minimal jail time and immunity for many of his co-conspirators. It was one of the most outrageous cases of leniency in modern legal history. And who was the prosecutor who cut that deal? Alex Acosta, later promoted by Donald Trump to serve in his cabinet. That decision alone raised red flags. Why elevate the man who gave Epstein such a light sentence unless there was an understanding, a payoff, or a debt being honored? Fast forward to Trump's presidency. Epstein is indicted again, this time on serious sex trafficking charges. But before he could face trial, Epstein is found dead in his cell. The official ruling? Suicide. The reality? A cloud of unanswered questions. Guards failed to check on him, cameras conveniently malfunctioned, and Epstein, one of the most high-profile detainees in the country, was inexplicably taken off suicide watch. Even Attorney General Bill Barr admitted mistakes were made, mistakes that just happened to benefit the very people terrified of what Epstein might reveal. And then there's Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's partner in crime. After Epstein's death, she was arrested and charged, but under Trump's DOJ, she received unusual treatment, including transfers to better facilities and interviews conducted by attorneys connected to Trump's circle. Victims, already betrayed once by the system, felt betrayed again as it looked like the government was more interested in protecting elites than delivering justice. The connections don't prove Trump committed Epstein's crimes, but they expose a staggering conflict of interest. The prosecutor who gave Epstein his first escape route was rewarded by Trump. The DOJ under Trump shielded documents, withheld transparency, and played defense instead of pursuing the truth. And Trump himself, instead of recusing, commented, intervened, and projected secrecy at every step. For victims, it was yet another betrayal. For the public, it was confirmation of what we already suspected. When it comes to Trump, the rules bend, justice warps, and truth gets buried under layers of corruption and cover-up. So what does all of this mean for Melania? Why is her crypto humiliation more than just a footnote in Trump's endless scandals? Because it reveals the core dynamic of the Trump empire. No one is safe from exploitation, not even his own wife. For years, Melania's image served as a shield. She was the aloof figure, too glamorous, too detached to be touched by Trump's dirt. Supporters could project onto her whatever they wanted. A victim, a reluctant participant, a secret resistor. But with Melania Coin, that image shattered. Suddenly, she wasn't above the corruption. She was part of it. Her name was slapped onto a grift that swindled millions from loyal fans. It's humiliating for her personally, but it's also dangerous for Trump's brand. Because once the illusion of family respectability crumbles, the whole house of cards starts to shake. The Trump dynasty depends on the idea that they're united, powerful, untouchable. If Melania is seen as humiliated, exploited, or ridiculed, it chips away at the aura Trump so desperately tries to project. And here's the irony. Trump humiliated her just as much as she humiliated him. By dragging her into the crypto scam, he exposed her to ridicule. By losing 98% of her coin's value, she became a symbol of failure. And now both of them share the shame. The first lady who never wanted to be first lady is now forever tied to one of the dumbest, most embarrassing scams in modern politics. It's poetic in a way. Trump, the man obsessed with appearances, with projecting strength, with winning at all costs, has managed to humiliate himself and his own wife in the pursuit of money. The greed consumed them both. Step back, and you see the bigger picture. The Trump presidency wasn't just chaotic, it was transactional. Every decision, every policy, every partnership was filtered through one question. How does this enrich us? Drones? Put Don Jr. on the board. Crypto? Launch a coin and cash out quick. Foreign policy? Kushner lines up billions from Saudi investors. Domestic politics? Ivanka secures Chinese trademarks for her fashion line. Even Melania, reluctant and detached, was roped into the circus with her doomed coin. And then the Epstein scandal hovers like a dark cloud, a reminder that corruption in Trump's orbit doesn't stop at money. It bleeds into justice, into morality, into the very core of who gets protected and who gets betrayed. Victims lost twice, first to Epstein, then to a system warped by Trump's influence. The consequences are everywhere. Ordinary Americans got poorer while billionaires got richer. Loyal supporters lost their savings in worthless coins, while the Trumps pocketed millions in fees. International allies lost trust in America, while foreign adversaries gained leverage. And through it all, Trump claimed victory, spun lies, and demanded loyalty. This isn't just about one family, it's about what happens when corruption is normalized, when grift becomes governance, when humiliation is shrugged off as just another day in politics. Trump may have enriched himself, but the cost to America has been immeasurable. Donald Trump promised greatness. What he delivered was greed. He promised to drain the swamp. What he created was a swamp with his family floating at the very top, skimming every dollar they could. He promised strength. What we see now is humiliation, not just for him, but for Melania, for his family, and for the supporters left holding worthless coins and broken promises. The story of Melania coin is more than a failed cryptocurrency. It's a metaphor for the Trump era. Hype over substance, grift over governance, and collapse over stability. It shows us that even those closest to Trump, his own wife, are not immune from being used, humiliated, and discarded in his endless quest for profit. And yet, the scandals keep coming. From drones to crypto to Epstein, the corruption is relentless. Each story adds another layer to the portrait of a presidency defined not by leadership, but by looting. So here's the final question we're left with. If this is what we've seen in public, the scams, the coins, the cover-ups, what's still hiding in the shadows? What corruption has yet to be uncovered? And how much more humiliation will America endure before the Trump saga finally ends? Because make no mistake, the grift is still happening, the humiliation is still unfolding, and the cost for Trump's family, for his supporters, and for the nation is far from over.